1980s, and I believe it was concluded in 1992. Based on that survey, there's about 4,694 communal groups in India. Alright, you can call it society, you can call it clan, you can call it tribe, you can call it caste, or if you want to use our local Nusantara term, you can call it a suku. So there's about suku. In Indonesia, there's about over 200 suku, like the Malay, the Bajau, the Bugis, the Javanese, and all these things. So in India, there's about 4,694 different communities. For a population which is 1.34 billion, that's not bad at all. In Tamil Nadu alone, there's about 364 groups. Alright? And the second thing which I want to establish here is that Indians have surnames, but our surnames can have two different types. It's either a titular surname, which means that everyone in that particular communal group, regardless of how they are related to each other, they will share the same title. They will share the same surname, which means that they will have other things to indicate their lineages. The second type of surname is, of course, the family name, where some people with the same surname do not get married. It's like the Chinese. Okay, for example, surnames which are shared, like Chettiar, Pillai, Reddy, these are all shared surnames. So two people with a shared surname may not necessarily mean they came from the same single ancestor. Surnames which are like family names are, for example, Wandaya, Tondeman, Muwaraya, these are all surnames which are family names. So those with these surnames, they will not marry people with the other surname. So the reason why I'm explaining this is because as we move on to the topic, you will start seeing this in relevance to the local Chetti community, and even the other big Chetti group we have is the Chettiars themselves. Yes. Okay. Now, Chetti is actually a titular surname. Surname is used by the merchant classes in India, particularly in South India. Like in North India, you will see the names being spelled as Seth or Shetty. In Karnataka, it's called Shetty. But in further south, like especially in the Tamil-speaking areas, you pronounce it as Chetti. That means one is starting with CH, the other one is starting with SH. Now the reason is because compared to other South Indian languages, Tamil is least influenced by Sanskrit. In Tamil, we don't have certain syllables. We don't have fa, we don't have sha. So you don't have any words in Tamil starting with sha. Like my name is Sharmalan, it's not a Tamil name. It's actually a Sanskrit name. If I want to write my name exactly in Tamil, it will become Chiamalan. Okay, just like Chinese, you have one name in Hokkien, and you may have another name in Cantonese. You may have some variations. So in the sense of South India, especially Tamil Nadu, the title for the merchant classes is Chetti. Okay, but if you move further north, it becomes Shetty. Like Karnataka is Shetty. And even now in Tamil Nadu, if you look to observe some movies and everything, you look at the money lenders from North India, they are called as Seth or Sethji. Now the reason is because in North India, they like to add the suffix G whenever they address someone, like Thakurji, Sethji and things. It's like a more respectful way of addressing the person. But in the Tamil society, we like to add the suffix R, AR at the back. So that sounds more respectful. So the surname which is actually Chetti becomes Chettiar in the Tamil sense. Just like how surnames like Reddy becomes Reddiar and Mudali becomes Mudaliar. Because the suffix R is added at the back so that it becomes more respectful. Now for example, like when we speak, for example, let's say I have a Chettiar friend, and his surname is either Chetti or Chettiar. When I speak to him, I won't say it as Chettiar, how are you? I will say it as Chettiare, how are you? So it's more like you expand the word itself. Like if you look at the Telugu society, when they speak to someone, they like to add the suffix Garu at the back. So they will be like Reddy Garu, how are you? Like that. So this is just a different way of expressing the word, I would say. So in the sense of, so the original word would have been Chet or Seth, but since Tamil don't have Sha, it becomes Chet in Tamil. So the surname becomes Chetti or Shetty. In South India, particularly Tamil society, it's Chettiar, and in North India, it's actually Sethji. So that's the only difference. So the reason why I'm explaining this part is because what we need to understand about the word Chetti or Chettiar, although today we are using it to identify a particular group of people, in reality, Chetti or Chettiar are just surnames. So just because two people have the same surname, it doesn't mean they came from the same tribe. It doesn't mean they have the same ancestor. The reason why they have the same surname is because their ancestors were in common profession, which is the merchant profession. They were all merchants. Okay. Now if you, I think the slide got bit mixed up. If you were to look at South India, okay, there are different communal groups. So in South India, those who use Chetti as surname, all these people. You have the 24 Mane Telugu Chetti, you have the Balija Chetti. I also wrote Nattukotte Chetti, I think it went down, missing. So that's okay. So there's Sundaram Chetti, there's Cholia Chetti, there's also something called Devangar Chetti. So Devangar is actually a tribe which lives in the intersect between Andhra and Karnataka. And a lot of them live in northern parts of Tamil Nadu, which is Chennai and those areas. In Malaysia, they even have an association. And because the Devangars who came to Malaysia are from the merchant class, their surname is Chetti. But because in Malaysia, Tamil is actually the most dominant language among the Indian society, they Tamilized the Chetti word as Chettiar. So in Malaysia, they actually have an association called Persatuan Kannada Devangar Chettiar in Malaysia. So they are actually Kannadigas. They don't speak Tamil. They are actually Kannadigas, and logically they should be putting Chetti or Shetty behind the name. But because of the Tamil influence in Malaysia, they are also using Chettiar. Okay? Now, they are different from the other groups, and all these groups you are seeing here, they are endogamous groups, which means that they don't intermarry among themselves. They are all independent groups of themselves. It's just that the surname which they are using is similar. So, if you were to look in Malaysia, the Nattukotte Chettis are known as the Nagarathas. They are probably the most popular among the Chettiars. So, if you say Chettiar, especially in areas like Melaka, when you say Chettiar, you're actually referring to them. You're not referring to any other particular Chetti groups, although you can also use the word Chettiar in reference to all the other Chetti groups. Now, the Nattukotte Chettiars, they are actually from Chola Kingdom. According to legend, they had some problem with the king, and apparently the women in their community were killed, and then they were chased down to the south, so they moved to the Pandian territory. They intermarried with the local Vellala women who used the Pillai title behind the names, and that created a new community called the Nattukotte Chettis. So presently they are centered around an area known as Karaikudi, which is in Sivagangai. It's quite near my native place as well. And if you were to speak to the old Chettiar community people, if they're still around, anyone who were to remember this, there's this belief among the Nattukotte Chettis that they should not, there's this particular river in South India, in Tamil Nadu. It's in the district of Pudukkottai. It's known as the Vellar River. There's actually two Vellar River in Tamil Nadu. So this is the southern Vellar. The southern Vellar is actually the traditional border between the Chola kingdom and the Pandian kingdoms. So the Chettiars have this belief, the Nattukotte Chettiars have this belief that their women should not cross the Vellar River back to Chola kingdom. So they have this tradition among themselves. But of course now people are not going to follow all those things. There are Chettiars all over the world. And if you look at the Chola kingdom, the societies are all patrilineal. That means they follow their lineage on the father's side. Surname comes on the father's side. But if you will look at the Pandian kingdom, the societies are mainly matrilineal. It's like the Minangkabau society. So they inherit the lineage from the mother's side. So the mother's side lineage is known as Kilai, whereas the father's side lineage is known as the Vamsam, which comes from the father's side. And if you look at the Chettiars, the Nattukotte Chettiars, they are presently located in Karaikudi, which is part of the Pandian kingdom, but they are patrilineal. Okay, so they follow the father's side lineage, and they follow the temple system, where every family has this family temple. So they have this record in the community, where people of the same temple cannot get married. And if you look at the Nattukotte Chettiar, they are very good in writing down their history. They have about 1,200 years of history recorded in areas like Pilayar Bitti and everything. explains also why they are very particular when it comes to money lending and everything, because they keep everything recorded. And the Natukode Chettiars have this system called as the pulley system. For example, if someone were to marry outside their community, that family will be marked with a dot in their records. So they know that.
Did you say that people belonging to one temple, they should intermarry or they cannot intermarry?
They cannot marry the same. Let's say, for example, you are from temple A and I'm from temple B, and temple A, your daughter and my son cannot get married. It means that they came from the same ancestor.
So the dot would be put if there was intermarriage.
If there is an intermarriage with another community, that means outside the Chettiar domain, they will be marked. So they call it the pulley system. The Chettiars have it. But things like this is something they will not talk openly, it's something they keep within their own community. And if you notice something about the Natukode Chettiars, wherever they go, they will build Murugan temples. Temples for Lord Muruga. Because Muruga is actually their patron deity of their community. Now there are few ways of explaining this, because if you look in like areas like Palani, which is one of the important temples for Muruga, in Palani, Murugan is known as Chetti. He is called as Chetti himself. And if you notice in Penang, the Penang Thaipusam conducted by the Chettiars is called as Chetti Pusam. Many people think that it's called as Chetti Pusam because of the Chettiars. But what they don't know is that Lord Muruga in the form of Danda Yudhabani is actually the patron deity of that community. He is called as Chetti, and because Thaipusam is conducted for him, it's called as Chetti Pusam. So this is the reason why it's called as Chetti Pusam over there. And another reason why he became, see, the Chettiars are actually a merchant community. Muruga is actually the war deity of the Tamil people. So how can a war deity become the patron deity of the Chettiar community? So this is something, there's two ways of explaining it. Now in certain parts of Tamil Nadu, the Natukode Chettiars are called as Uppu Koravar. Uppu means salt. Koravar is actually a tribe which lives in the hilly side. So Murugan used to be the patron deity of the hills. So the tribe which lives in the hills is Kuravas. So it's stated that the Chettiars may have some sort of link with this community in the distant past. And Murugan has many forms. One of the forms of Murugan is known as Subramanya. Subramanya means Lord of Serpents, because the word Subra in the old Dravidian language it means serpents. Just like how Sarpa is actually serpent in Sanskrit and in English is serpent. So these words are all interrelated. So Murugan in the form of Subramanya is actually the Lord of Serpents. And this group of Chettiars, the Natukode Chettiars, who are also known as Nagaratars, they came from a place in the Chola country known as Nagapattinam. You know, even today Nagapattinam exists. They are said to come from there. So Naga means serpent as well. So this links back to why they are worshipping Murugan. You know, because he in another form, the tribal form, is actually the Lord of Serpent, which many people actually don't know. So the Natukode Chettis are the one who are like the dominant group of Chettis in Malaysia. There used to be a lot of them in Myanmar as well. And as we know, they got chased out from Myanmar. So can we go to the next slide? So having explained this, I hope that it's clear for you all now that in South India, there are many different groups of tribes, many different groups of community which uses Chetti as a surname. Now, when we say that, how does that relate to a group of people in Melaka who supposedly arrived 500 years ago during the Vijayanagara Empire and who also called themselves Chetti? So, are these people related? Are they even in the list of Chettis? Next slide, please. Now, if you look at the Melaka Chettis, the word Chetti to address them is actually a misnomer. Because among the Melaka Chettis, there's only one family which is actually a merchant family, which uses Chetti as a surname. Now the reason is, I'm telling you this because if you look at the Indian society back then, they used to have mercantile guilds all over Southeast Asia and everything. They used to send people in large groups to do business, to trade with other countries and bring back wealth to their native country. And when people migrate those days, they don't just migrate as one family. They don't just, not only one group will come, they will bring all the other groups which are related to them and move in a large group. Probably, they migrate as like 300 people or 400 people, they will migrate in large groups like that. Because back then it was a feudal society. Occupation was based on the clan, was based on the community you belonged to. If your father was a soldier, the son will become a soldier. If your father was a businessman, the son will become a businessman. So this is how life used to be back then. It was not a democratic system where anyone can choose to become whatever they want. So what could have happened back then during the Vijayanagara times is because, is that there would have been a large migration of men from the Vijayanagara Empire. They would have moved from Visakhapatnam or any areas to Melaka to trade in Melaka. So as they came there, they brought men of different skill sets. So these are the people who were the ancestors of the present day community, which is calling itself the Melaka Chettis. So you have these at least 9 different groups or 9 families among them. And if you look at these surnames, you have Chetti, Pillai, Naikar, Raja, Padayachi, Kullan, Pandaram, Konar and Pattar. Among all these groups, Chetti is the only merchant surname. The rest are not merchant surnames. And in this group, Chetti could be either Tamil or it could even be Telugu. Remember earlier I showed you on the slide where there were different groups of Chetti groups. Some of them are actually Telugu speakers, they are not Tamils. And if you look at this again, Naikar and Raja are not Tamil surnames. The rest are Tamil surnames. See, the Naikar surname was established during the Vijayanagara Empire time. What happened was when the Vijayanagara Empire was established and the whole of South India was consolidated into a single empire, they appointed people to head all those provinces. So this head of provinces, this head of small regions were what they call as Naikar. It came from the Sanskrit word Nayak. Nayak means captain, it could also mean hero. Okay, Nayak. So from Nayak, you get the word Nayakar, as what I said earlier. In Tamils we have this habit of adding the suffix R at the back. Reddy becomes Reddyar, so Nayak becomes Nayakar. So this is the origin of the surname of Nayakar. And they spoke either Telugu or Kannadam in the beginning. Later, because of assimilation, they started adopting Tamil as well. So present day Nayakars can speak Tamil. But if you were to take a time machine and go back 500 years ago, they would be speaking either Telugu or Kannadam. And Raja is also another surname which is related to the Telugu community. There's one surname in the Telugu community known as Raju as well. They also migrated along with these Nayakars and the Reddys during the Vijayanagara Empire. The rest you see are Tamil surnames. Padayachis, they are more like they are more in charge of security and things like that. Okay, Padayachi simply means people who are enlisted in the army. And Kulan are blacksmiths. So Pandaram is priests. Konar is shepherds and those who are in charge of animal husbandry. Pattar are goldsmiths. Pillai agricultural community. So when you look at the Chetti surnames, what you can conclude is that people of different skill sets, they all migrated together. So although the Chetti is a merchant surname, when the Chettis migrated, they brought all these people together with them because they need someone to provide security. They need someone to take care of agriculture. They need someone to become the goldsmith. They need someone to become the blacksmith. They need someone to take care of animal husbandry and all those things. And they need a priest as well with them. So they brought all these groups to Melaka back then. Now if you look at the Natukote Chettis, they are actually one group of people. They are just one tribe. But if you look at these Melaka Chettis, you can see clearly that they used to be multiple tribes. So when they first came to Melaka, they were not one community. They were a group of, they came under the merchant guild group and they migrated here. They were all different tribes. So what could have happened when they came here is, if they were to stay here for very long, then they have to start a family here. And all of them are men. How are they going to start a family? So they will have to intermarry. Some of them could have brought their wives. I don't know. Some of them could have brought their wives. But those who did not bring their wives and they want to start a community here, or if they plan to live here for the next 500 years, then they have to start intermarrying with the locals. So they intermarry with the local, probably Malay ladies or Javanese ladies, and I think they intermarry. And that intermarriage is what caused the fusion in their culture today. You see today, you can see these Melaka Chetti women wearing kabaya, which is not the traditional costume of the Indian community. And you can see them speaking in Malay language. they're doing their pantol and everything. This is nothing to do with the Tamil language and everything. And if you even look at their cooking, it's all, you can see the local influence. So what started as a migration of different groups for trade purpose later became a new community itself. Now you may wonder if all of them had different surnames, all of them came from different communities, why are all of them known as Chetti today? Because if you look at it clearly, in the beginning, only the Chetti families should be called as Chetti, right? You don't call a Pillai as a Chetti, because a Pillai is a Pillai, a Pattar is a Pattar, a Padayachi is a Padayachi. They are not Chettis. But how did all of them came to be addressed as Chetti? Now to explain this, sometimes we have to understand the psychology of the Indian community. You see, we Indians, we have this habit where if you have a group of something, we like to take what is dominant in that group as an identity for the entire group. I give you an example. If you look at how places are named in Tamil Nadu, every district has its divisions. But there will be one division which shares the same name as the district itself, and that will be the headquarter of the district. Like the headquarter of Ramnath district is Ramnath. The headquarter of Sivagangai district is Sivagangai. Sivagangai has Karaikudi, it has Elayangudi and all those places. But Sivagangai, there's a division called Sivagangai in Sivagangai, and that is the name of the headquarters of the district itself, which is the same name as the district. And even if today we were to speak to some Indians, like for example, if I were to talk to my friend who lives in Klang, Klang is a big district, he lives in Klang. And if I were to talk to him, okay, what are you doing this weekend? And he might tell me, I'm going to Klang this weekend. And I'll be like, you are staying in Klang, why are you going to Klang some more? What he means is he's going to the headquarters of the town, he's going to the center of the town. So this is how we like to identify things. This is part of, I would say this is part of the Indian way of addressing things. So we apply that on a communal level as well. Like for example, we have this community known as Parkava Kulam. Kulam means clan. So when you say Parkava Kulam, it means that as per legend, they were created by a sage called Bhargava. The males are called as Bhargavan and the females are called as Bhargavis. So in Bhargava Kulam, you have three main surnames, which is Udayar, Mupanar and Nainar. But because Udayar is the dominant surname in that community, the entire community gets to be called as Udayar community. Even in Malaysia, they registered the association as Malaysia Udayar Welfare Association. But in that Udayar Association, you have these Mupanars, you have the Nainars and everything. It's the same as the community which I came from. My community is known as Mukkulathur, means that it's three clans, the Kaldar, Maravan, and Aggamudiyar. We have 1,135 surnames. Please don't ask me how we got so many surnames, because it's going to take a long time for me to explain. One of the most popular surname in this community is the surname Thevar. But because this surname is so popular among the community, everyone in the community are called Thevar. So today if the news were to come about the community, they will just address it as Thevar community. But the guy involved in that issue would have been someone from a different surname and everything. Like my parents, they came from the same community, but my mom's surname and my father's surname is different. My father's surname is Thevar, my mom's surname is Kandapalli. But they came from the same community. So this is the same logic which happened to the Melaka Chettis. So when the Melaka Chettis first migrated to Melaka many centuries ago, they would have probably been given a different name. Probably they would have just been called as Kaling. Right? Because back then anyone who come from India, they would call as Kaling. That's how you get Kampung Kaling and everything. But later as time went, because the Chetti community stand out as perhaps the most outstanding among everyone, and probably at later times everyone started being involved in trade business. So the whole community came to be called as Chetti community. So that's how this community got its name. And if you look at this, these are all surnames of different tribes. By right, in reality, these different tribes, they don't intermarry. But in Melaka, they had a different situation. They had a situation where they had to intermarry with the locals. They have to stick as a community. So what they came up, I would say, is a brilliant solution. They came up with a solution where if you have the same surname, you avoid marriage. So in Melaka community, when I checked with my Melaka Chetti friends, they told me that if it's the same surname, they do not intermarry. Is that right?
Well, from what I gather is because a lot of people have, from what I gather is that some people have changed their names from whatever to Pillai or whatever. So maybe then Pillays and Pillays would have intermarried because it's the right now a very common surname amongst the Melaka Chettis. I guess that would be.
Okay, Pillai in the actual sense is actually a surname given to the agricultural community back in Tamil Nadu known as the Vellalar community. So the Vellalar community is a very large tribe. You have Vellalars all over Tamil Nadu, and they have about 100 subdivisions among them. So the Vellalars who live on the eastern side of Tamil Nadu, areas like Tanjavur, Nagapattinam, Sivagangai, or even Ramnath, or even as far as Tirunelveli, these Vellalars, regardless of the subdivision they came from, they would use Pillai as a common surname. But among them, they have different ways of indicating their lineage. For example, if you go to Chidambaram, the Vellalars known as the Arunatu Vellalar, that is Vellalars of 6 nations, they have 35 family names among themselves. So although they have family names, they don't use the family name. They all put Pillai behind their name. And then you have this group of Vellalars known as Isai Vellalar. They are musicians, they are the temple musicians, those who play the Melam and those who play the Nadaswaram. They come from a community known as Isai Vellalar. They too use Pillai behind their name. And if you notice, even among the Malayalis, those from Kerala, there is a group of people who also call themselves as Pillays. So these Pillays are actually migrants from Tamil Nadu to Kerala back then. Okay? And in Kerala, you have an association known as Kerala Vellalar Mahasabha. So you have all these Vellalar migrants in Kerala who today speak Malayalam as their mother tongue, use Pillai as their surname, and they live in Kerala. So the Pillai community in Melaka, one way to differentiate them, whether they belong to the same lineage, that means whether they have the same ancestor or not, is by checking who is their ancestral deity. Alright? If they have the same ancestral deity and they also use Pillai behind their name in Melaka, I'm only talking about the Melaka community, it means that they came from the same ancestor. But if you have two different Pillays, his ancestral deity is probably Ayana, this guy's ancestral deity is probably someone else, probably some Amman or something, then there's high chance that they did not come from the same lineage. I can also see that, when I came in, I saw a Muthu Mariamman temple. Mariamman temple is actually very peculiar to the Tamil people, particularly to the Pillai community, because the Pillays were agriculturists. Mariamman is the goddess of smallpox and rain. That's why she's Mari. Mari means rain in Tamil language. So they could have been the one who brought Mariamman here. Because if you look at the Chetti people, those with the Chettiar surname, generally their patron deity is Murugan, but individually they will also have a lot of different deities. Some Chettis they worship Ayana, some Chettis they worship Bhairava a lot. That is why you can see names of Bhairava very common among the Chetti community.
And that could be the reason why the first temple that the Melaka Chettis created was the Vinayaka temple.
Yes, they also have a lot of Vinayaka temples. Like if you go to Karaikudi, you meet the Chettiar community, or if you were to check with the local Natukode Chettiar Association, there are some of them who have their family deities who is actually Vinayaka. And they have a specific temple back in India where they all go every year to offer their prayers and everything. So that could be linked to this. So, but I'm not saying that the Chetti in Melaka are related to the Natukode Chettis. They could be, that's what I'm trying to say. But the Melaka Chettis, they could have come from any of the Chetti groups. They could have come from the Telugu side, they could have come from the Tamil side. So one way where we can check this is to find out who the ancestral deity is and to see whether there's any relevance to the Chettis back in India or not. That's the only way for us to confirm which group of Chettis this particular Chetti family in the Melaka Chetti descended from.
Sorry, I missed your first half.
Sorry.
But are there people in India with that surname Chetti as the way it's spelled?
Yes.
There are.
Because in India, you can spell it as Chetti, you can spell it as Chetti, you can add a suffix R at the back and call it a Chettiar, you can call it Shetty. If you go to northern parts, it becomes Seth, because I was explaining to them earlier where in South India, especially in the Tamil language, you don't have the syllable Sha. So you don't have any pronunciation called Chetti. In Tamil, when you write it becomes Cha, so it becomes Chetti. So it's actually the surname is actually, it carries the same meaning, but it's used by different mercantile communities. I think there were about 24 mercantile communities which I identified in South India with the same surname. They don't intermarry among themselves, they have different ancestors, different way of life and everything, but they share the same surname because they were all merchants. So this group of, this Chetti family in Melaka could have come from any one of those 24 groups. 24 groups.
So the Chettis are mostly merchants?
Yeah, Chetti means merchant. The Chetti surname is only used by merchants.
By merchants.
Yes.
Sharmalan, sorry. I would like to add one more surname inside. Mudaliar.
Mudaliar. Did I miss
Mudaliar
it?
is not in.
Okay, sorry, I missed Mudaliar.
And also just now when you talk about the Pillai, right? Correct. What you meant is based on the Kula Devam.
Yeah.
Yes, example, my Kula Devam is Sri Anganama Parameshwari. They are Pillays who actually also, the Kula Devam is INR, Lord INR. What is actually you're telling is true. By right, for us to trace back the history of Chettinaka, we also need to trace back who is our Kula Devam. Without knowing that, we will not have a true soup of the history of the Chettinaka.
See, the Kula Devam concept, if you want to translate it literally to the Malay concept, is like the Saka concept. See, Malays, they have this thing called Saka. I think it's inherited from the mother's side, usually, for Malays, where it's seen like a guardian spirit, which will be passed down from one generation to another generation. So, in the Tamil sense, Kula Devam is something like that, which is actually a guardian spirit protecting the particular lineage. And this guardian spirit could be like a supernatural being, or it could be an ancestor. So there are different ways how a person obtain a Kula Devam in their life. So Kula Devam is only passed down from one lineage to another lineage, and in our belief system, you should not pray to another person's Kula Devam. For example, if your temple is temple A, mine is temple B, I can't come and pray to your temple. The reason, and in India, they won't even allow other person to enter. So it's not discriminating. The reason is because the belief is that that deity, that spirit, can only help those in the bloodline. So even if I don't pray, it can't do anything. It cannot interact. And this belief that if that spirit from that particular Kula Deva wants to do something for me, he needs the permission of my Kula Deva first. So this is more like an ancestral spirit or a guardian spirit which protects the lineage. So the Malays actually have been also, they call it the Saka. Anything you guys want to ask regarding this?
As far as I know, Subramaniam is a form of Kartik or Murugan, right? And I got a reference, I'm not sure where I got it, in Singapore, that so these guys were all Shaivites, essentially.
Okay,
but then why did they not make a Shiva temple and make a Murugan or like I'm talking about the Tank Road temple in Singapore, which is the Nattukutai Chettiar temple, which is Subramaniam temple. But why not Shiv? There was a reference that they could not, they had a problem with Brahmin priests or something. Is that, I'm not sure.
Okay, this is what I heard. You see, the Brahmins, there are different types of Brahmins. There are also Brahmins who eat meat. Not all Brahmins are vegetarians. You have the Saraswat Brahmins, you have the Gauda Brahmins, you have the Panchadrabda Brahmins, and different types of Brahmins. So for Sivan temples, there are specific Brahmins who handle that. And according to their belief system, they should not cross the sea. So this is one of the reasons why certain Brahmins did not migrate out of the country. Like if you look in India, you have these Kanchi mutts, the Kanchi mutt, the Shankaracharya mutts and everything. Those Brahmins will not cross the sea. That is why Adi Sankara, who reformed the whole of India, did not go to Sri Lanka, because he could not cross the sea. Sri Lanka was just about 16 kilometers away from mainland India. He could have gone there and, because he was debating with all the Buddhists in India, but he did not debate with the Buddhists in Sri Lanka, because he could not cross the sea. But there are certain Brahmins who can cross the sea. These are the Brahmins who follow the Agama Sastra. You have the Veda Sastra, you have the Agama Sastra. So Agama is also including Tantra. And Tantra, you have two types, which is Vamachara and Dakshinachara. So Vamachara is followed more in North India. it's called the left-hand path. Like if you look at Kali temples in Bengal and everything, they follow Vamachara Tantra, where they even offer fish. But South Indians follow Dakshinachara, which is more on a vegetarian way of worship. And Dakshina also means right, it also means south. There's two meanings for Dakshina, south and right. So if you were to look at the sun at the east, and if you were to expand your hand is your right hand, it's also facing south. This is east, this is south. And if you look at the Indian map, South India follows Dakshinachara method of worship. So some of these priests who were associated with Shiva worship, they could not cross the sea, so they were not brought in. But there's no such restriction for Murugan worship and all those things. And in Murugan worship, one of those most ancient group of people who used to be priests are the Pandaras. They were the actual priests of Lord Murugan. And for the Agama Sastra, the main group of Brahmins who actually handle it are known as Sivacharyas. So in Agama Sastra, only the Sivacharyas are allowed to enter into the main the room of the deity, to the sanctum of the deity to perform worship. Other Brahmins cannot go. This is Agama Sastra. If you follow Agama Sastra correctly, even people like Adi Sankaracharya or the present Kanchi Mat pontiffs and everything, they are not allowed to even cross a particular point in the temple to go into and offer worship. Only the Sivacharya Brahmins are allowed to do that. So when all these people migrated, I think the options were very limited. They can only take certain types of people with them to spread, to start a temple here. And that is why if you notice something, Hinduism in Southeast Asia is very different from Hinduism in India. The reason is because it's two reasons. Reason number one is certain Brahmins did not cross the sea to spread Hinduism here. So the ones who came to spread Hinduism may not necessarily be Brahmins. They could come from any other community. They could follow a particular school within Hinduism, not necessarily the main school and everything. Number two is that Adi Sankara did not come to Southeast Asia. He was only reforming in India, I think. So when he was reforming in India, what happened was there were 72 different types of religion in India at that time. He destroyed most of it. He consolidated them into 6 religions, which is Saivism, Shaktism, Vaishnavism, Kaumaram, which is Murugan worship, Ganapatyam, which is Vinayagar worship, and Sauram. Sauram is the worship of the sun god. So he consolidated everything into 6. From 72 it became 6. But you don't see that happening in Southeast Asia, because in Southeast Asia you can see that the way they practice Hinduism is very different, because Adi Sankara did not come here to reform all those things, to follow his way. Any other questions?
I'm not well versed in German organ.
That's all right.
Organ. This regarding Chetti, Chitty. About 10 years ago when I went around Thailand, I came across a temple, Chetti, Chetti Pragasam Temple. Then I wrote it down because we call ourselves Chetti Melaka. And how come this Chetti Pragasam Temple is in Bangkok? And what is the story about it? And that place you have to get permission from the princess of Thailand to go into that area, to know about the history of that area. So from there, I move on to King Rama the 9th temple. There's a lot of our history there, because I'm not a writer and I'm not well versed in temple. With less history knowledge. I just want to know that Chetti, Pragasam temple on the way to Pattaya. Thank you.
Now, as I said, Chetti is actually a titular surname shared by 24 different communities. So, two people with the same surname need not necessarily be they are related, but they could be related. So, if you want to call it Chettiar, it's just a more respectful way of calling it, but the actual way of calling it is Chetti. So, in some pronunciation, it's written as Chetti. Like if you were to read old books, you will notice that the pronunciation or the spelling of certain places is different. Like even if you look at our own Bahasa Malaysia, today we call Chuti as C-U-T-I, but back then it was C-H-U-T-I. The British wrote it that way. Like we write Sepulo today as Sepuluh. Back then it was LOH. So spelling can make a lot of difference. The one thing we have to understand is, although the spelling may differ, the pronunciation may differ a bit, the meaning is actually the same. It all refers to the merchants. The temple which you asked me, I don't really know much about the temple, so I can't say anything about the temple. But we need to dig into the past of the temple to see who built it. Was it related to any merchant group? Was there a chitti involved in the temple? By the way, what temple is it? Is there a particular deity in the temple?
We have a lot of Vinayagar and all that, but every altar, they have one priest, one ayar. Not the same ayar like what we do here, all the deities. One ayar of another place, there, each individual one.
So they are following the specific school for that deity. Because different deities will have different schools in Hinduism, different way of doing it. Like if you look at even in the present Hinduism, I think, the way Vinayagar is worshipped here and the way Vinayagar is worshipped in Indonesia is different. In Indonesia, Vinayagar is worshipped not only as a remover of obstacle, but also as a deity who can cause harm. They even offer non-vegetarian offerings to Vinayagar in Indonesia. But in Malaysia, Vinayagar is this cute, bubbly, elephant god with a big belly running around like a small kid, who we pray to, in times like, tomorrow's my exam, make sure I pass. But in Indonesia, they pray to him for a different reason. Alright, so the temple which you went, probably they're following a very, very specific school. So they want to ensure that only those who are well versed in the school conduct the rituals for the deity, instead of mixing it up like what we normally do in Malaysia.
And the discipline there was, the difference that I see, if we go to temple, we buy coconut, we buy everything, but there, we just pay 100 baht, put it into a glass, big glass, and the damalam is there on both sides, with banana leaf, with coconut, everything that you need for a prayer is just 100 baht. Just put that, you take the tray and go. It's
It's a different system.
System. Like here we have to run to Devi Bala and all that, buy everything, back. Yeah, there, everything is there. Even Malay also.
Maybe we should do that here, because it sounds very easy for me. I don't have to go to different shops.
Yes.
I think if you prepare everything like in what they do in Thailand, you will not learn your heritage. Because if you run around and buy things, you know what you need to do. If you pay and you know, that means you are not learning it. That is my opinion.
That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking is because you see, temples, if you want to follow the Shastra rules correctly, they are actually very particular. Like for example, if you want to make an offering to deity, a cooked offering, you must not buy from the shop. You must not put in any artificial ingredients. You must not include colorings. So it could be that the temple probably had a situation where people were bringing all sort of things to the temple, and they want to give it as an offering to the deity, and probably the priest felt this was not right, it's not the correct way of doing things, so probably they came up with a system where, okay, you guys pay us, we'll just prepare everything for you all in the temple itself, and we'll give it to them. Because these things are actually happening, even in Malaysian temples. Like there's some rules in Hinduism where when you make a garland for the flower, you are not supposed to take the needle and poke into the flower with the thread to make the garland. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to tie the flower on the thread and make a garland. So if you take the needle and poke the flower, it's actually considered as an insult for the deity. So, but you can't go and tell that to the shopkeeper. You can't, when you go and buy your flower garland, you can't go and ask him, hey, you can poke this or not, you can do like this or not. You can't go and ask him. Like if you want to buy laddu or adrasam, you don't have the time to sit at home and do all those things. So what you do, you just go to the shop and buy. But in reality, when you want to do an offering to God, even when you do an offering in your own house, you're not supposed to buy things from the shop. That is the real correct way of doing it. So probably this is why that temple came up with that solution where they don't want all sorts of roja to come in. So they just come up and say, okay, you pay us 100 bahts, we'll prepare everything in our kitchen and we'll offer it to the gods. Probably this is what happened. Like I remember that there's this temple in Madurai where when they offer flower to the goddess, the flower from the tree can only be offered to that one goddess. You can't take the flower and give it to some other deities. And only one person is assigned to take the flower. And that person has taken a lifelong vow where he will never speak for the rest of his life. There's some temples like that. So this guy, he can speak. It's not that he's dumb. It's not that he's mute or what. He can speak. But he has taken a lifelong vow that because he has given himself in service to the temple, he be a bachelor all life long, he will not speak a single word. His work every day is to go, take the flower, and then give it to the goddess.
And you can find people like that.
Yeah, you can still find people like that in India. You can find a lot of, we will see it's something very extreme. You know, for us it's something very extreme. But for them, that is their sacrifice for Hinduism. Ask me to do it, I can't do it. Okay, I can't go on 5 minutes without talking, I can't do that.
We forget.
Yeah. That is why in Hinduism, you see, in Hinduism, if you want to, there's no one standard way of doing things. Okay, if you want to take the worship of the goddess, you can worship her as a sannyasi. That means you have renunciate. You've let go of everything in your life, you become a renunciate. But if you are a married person, you have children and everything, you can't sit for 4 hours and conduct prayers. You've got work to do. You'll be walking into the prayers and your child will be crying there, you want to go and change the diapers. So there are different rituals for married people with family. There are different rituals for bachelors. There are different rituals for renunciates. So they have different sets in Hinduism. That is why if you want to read the Vedas or you want to read the scriptures and thing, you're going to take up a lot of your time. You don't have the time. Like a typical Sri Chakra prayers takes about 12 hours. You can't do that. So what they do is they summarize the whole thing into a mantra called the Stotras, which is called the Kadgamala Stotra, and it takes only 5 minutes. So this is for householders, those who are married, those who have kids, normal people and everything, people like us, who are always busy. So we do worship this way. But let's say we have given up on all our material desires, we have become renunciates, then the way we do the worship is going to be different.
The same in Buddhism.
Yes, it's the same in Buddhism. A different set of people, different temperament, they worship differently. Warriors offer different kind of worship, merchants offer different kind of worship, Brahmins offer different kind of worship because their temperaments are different. If you want to go to war, when you want to offer a worship, you have to be someone who's aggressive. You can't be someone who says that I won't look at blood, I won't eat chicken, I won't eat goat. You must be someone who's willing to kill because those days in war, you don't stand 1,000 meters away and take a gun and shoot. What you're going to do is you're going to go near the fella, you're going to take the knife, you're going to stab him, his intestines all will come out, and you must be brave enough to see that. You must be strong enough to stand and fight. If someone hits you and your hand gets cut off, you must be brave enough to withstand all that. So for you to be like that, the way you conduct your worship must also be aligned with that. Only then you can have that sort of temperament. But for the Brahmins, it was not necessary. See, the Brahmins are generally, a lot of them are vegetarians, they are very soft-hearted. They are not as aggressive as the others and everything. So for them, certain types of worship is more suitable. You can't put them in this and you can't put the other group into this. So that is why in Hinduism we have so many different groups, so many different sects.
My name is Shamgam. Correct me if I'm wrong. Refer back to this slide, the clan of the Melaka Chetti community. One of the ways that I believe we can trace whether we come from Tamil Nadu or we are Telugu is from our wedding thali.
Yes.
Yeah. Because our wedding thali is passed down generation after generation. So one of the way to trace whether you are from which part, whether you are from Tamil or Telugu, one of the way is the thali.
Correct, that's right. You look at the thali. The thali is, for those who are not Indians, thali is actually a marriage pendant. So it's more like a hanging license to say that this woman is married. The symbol of the thali is actually the symbol of the family itself to show that this woman is now married to this family. So the thali gets passed down from one generation to one generation. So in the case of like my wife, she follows the same thali as my mother because these two are women from a different family who married into my lineage, which is me, my father, and my grandfather, everything. Now, if you look at the Telugus, generally they use pottu thali. Pottu thali means it's a circle thali, which looks like, yes, it's like a medallion thing. It looks like the pottu which you buy. It's just a circle. So usually Telugus they use that kind of thalis. If you look at the Malayalis, they call it as yala thali. Yala means it looks like a leaf. So the Malayalis they use the pendant looks like a leaf. But if you look at the Tamil society, they have all sorts of different thalis. Now, regarding the Melaka Chetti, is there anyone who uses pottu thali? You have pottu thali. So which means that your ancestors could have been from the Telugu side. So if you are from the Telugu side, then the Raja clan, is it Raja clan? So it's the Raja clan which should have come from there, because there's another clan called the Rajus. See, when the Vijayanagara Empire was established, certain feudal societies, certain warrior societies migrated south to the Tamil land. So you have the Rajus, the Rajas, and then you have the Naikars, you have the Rediyars, you have the Naidus. These were all like the feudal lords who migrated down south. So your family could have been from that branch which migrated to Melaka 500 years during the Vijayanagara Empire. Are you all the only one who use pottu thali in Naikar also? Because Naikars are originally Telugus. They are not actually Tamils. In each Tamil society, there are some clans which has a Naikar as a surname. Like for example, you have Soma Naikar, you have Nayaka Vadiyar, and everything. They are Tamils. But the just Naikar surname, originally they are either Telugus or Kannadikas. So if you are using pottu thali, it means that the Raja family and the Naikar family were originally Telugus. The rest are definitely Tamils. Konar is definitely Tamil, Palayachi is definitely Tamil, Pandaram is definitely Tamil. So they would have different thali design. Are there still anyone who use Chetti as a surname? You still have. Do you know how's the design of the thali? If the thali looks a bit weird with sharp angles, it's related with the Natukode Chettis. No.
The other side?
This is more like the player thali. And Tennam Pala.
So what is that?
There could be different communities which use Tennam Pala. Tennam Pala is I think common in the northern side as well of Tamil Nadu. Tennam Pala thali. And she also has a dot like they call it the player thali, she has the dot. Sometimes thali does not only show the lineage of a person, it can also be shared. Like for example, if you go to a certain area in Tamil Nadu, everyone in that region will probably be using the same thali. So it's not necessary that they all came from the same family as well. So it could be two different things. But yours is Tamil thali. It's used by the Tamil people. It's this thali. And the Tennam Palai thali, if I'm not mistaken, is also found in the Tiruvannamalai region, which is the northern side. Because my wife's maternal family, my wife's family or father's family, they use Tennam Palai thali. So her ancestors came from Tiruvannamalai. You are also having a similar thali. So it could be that you all came from the same region. By the way, what's your surname? Chetti. Yeah, so it could be that your ancestor could have been a Chettiar from the Tiruvannamalai region or the Kanchipuram region. So that's where you can find this Tennam Palai thali. Yes. Tennam Palai. But Malayalis, they don't use it in the thali. They don't put it in their thali design. Their thali is more like the yala thali, it's shaped like leaves. So they don't use Tennam Palai thali. Tennam Palai thali is used by the Tamil people. You can find it in Tiruvannamalai or Kanchipuram, which is the northern districts of Tamil Nadu.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you look at all these surnames, right, most of it are on the northern side of Tamil Nadu and on the eastern side of Tamil Nadu. Eastern side you can find Pillai, you can find Konar, Padayachis also you can find on the eastern side near Tanjavur, Tiruvannamalai, Velur, and all those places. It's not from down south, not from very far south. So you would be somewhere from the northern part of Tamil Nadu or close to the Andhra side and everything. And you can say that the Naikas or the Raja are people of Telugu origin.
But there is migration from Telugu to South India also.
Yes, there's migration.
There's some South Indian Telugus there.
Yes.
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Peranakan Indians, also known as Melaka Chettis, at the present moment, the interesting is we are cut off from the mainland. No more migration. Unlike the other Chettiar, they still go back to India regularly, and the connection is still there. Unlike us, we have cut off. Something we need to work.
Correct. That's something I have to agree, because unlike the other Chettiar group, or even unlike the other Indian groups, you guys have actually cut off your ties with the northern part, because you have lived here for 500 years. And for you to survive here for 500 years is amazing, I would say. It's not easy to stay in a land far away from your ancestral land, going through the Portuguese War, the Dutch War, the British War, and war among all regions. They had different sultanates, they all were fighting. But somehow, you even had a situation where you had to intermarry with the locals and everything. But somehow you managed to hold your identity, although you also fused your identity with the existing community. I can see that your women wear kebaya, your food is a little bit different, I think. But you still maintain your Kuladeva, which is not an easy thing, because if you look at the present Indians, we who migrated during the British period, a lot of us don't even know who our Kuladeva is. Some people don't know who their Kuladeva is, some people don't even know where their village is back in India, some people don't even know what's their surname, they have completely lost their identity. But for some reason, you guys, although you have lived here for 500 years, you managed to protect all those things, which is not an easy thing, and I would say it's very impressive that you managed to hold this. So, in the future, if at all your community comes across another problem, you have to just remind yourself that if you could go through this for 500 years and still survive, you can defeat anything, you can of course overcome anything in life. Because 500 years is a long time, and as I said, you had wars, in this area had wars with the Dutch, with the Portuguese, the British came, the Japanese came, you had wars with with all the regions here. And when war happened, a lot of things changes, famine happens, people migrate, family gets destroyed, but you survived. So that's very important.
Is there any other Indian-based community outside of India, anywhere else in the world, that survived for 500 years?
No.
Or is this the only one?
You are the only one, and if at all there were any Indians who migrated, they would have assimilated with the local population and lost their identity. I'm sure that someone would have migrated to Africa, someone would have migrated to other parts of Asia and everything, but they have already lost their identity. They have lost their surnames, they have lost their way of life and everything. But you guys survived. This is what impresses me, because this area is a frequented area by different communities. See, Melaka used to be a very busy port. People from all over the world come to Melaka, which means that you would have encountered a lot of foreign influence. But despite that, you survived, which is a good thing, I would say.
Hi, may I say something? One of the reasons I think that the people didn't go back and didn't keep ties, and it could be the embarrassment of having married with the locals, and that could be one of the reasons, because it happened not too long ago with my uncle, who's a Malayali. He married a Melaka Chetti woman, and he never went back to India after that, even though he's got family there. And because he was embarrassed that he had married a local woman here, not one of his own race, And I think that may have happened in the earlier part also, when a lot of people cut off their ties with their families in India because of that. And because these people now are all here together, they kind of, got together and helped each other, support each other, because we were all in a similar situation. But having said that, I feel that one of the things our ancestors did, we have to be very grateful for, is the fact that they donated the land that they had to the temple to keep the community together. And I think that's one of the main reasons why this community survived. Because we had our own temple lands and we were grouped together, and we stayed together. But like in Singapore right now, they don't have such a similar place, and therefore they are all quite dispersed. And if not for the efforts of some of the Singaporean leaders, they, eventually they would have been assimilated into the society, and they would have lost their identity too. That's all.
If your ancestors removed their surnames and if they did not build temples, you won't be here today. That's all I'm saying.